but they were. All right. And then after that, we got to get an update now. It's been quite a while since you learned there was a warrant that wasn't actually a warrant out for your arrest. You weren't really being arrested, more detained. Um, and I'm starting to believe that the whole thing was a bluff to get you into New York City so you could be detained, and then basically roll the dice with what would happen after that. But that NYPD and Richmond County DA Mike McMahon would consider it a victory if they could even just get you back in there, detain you, and you would be detained for some period of time, maybe days, before you get in front of a judge. But what is the latest? Oh, and so let me summarize it. If you don't like my summary, you can add to it. A few weeks ago, you found out that there was a warrant for your arrest, that you had violated a protective order against DA Mike McMahon. However, in this case, he was acting as a private citizen. You said you never were served with this protective order. This has to do with a state case, and you making mocking Facebook posts. Somehow that led to a 10-year protective order. After that, you learned that the so-called violation was an automatic email that your Substack sent to him. You then learned that he signed up of free will to the Substack. You then learned that he actively participated in receiving Substacks, clicking on links that he seemed to be turning into a fan. And then on July 13th, he was triggered by an article about her by Bandy Lee that had nothing to do with him. Then you learned that the warrant was not actually a warrant, that it was an iCard, a special thing that that NYPD uses to alert all of NYPD that if they encounter a certain individual, that they are to be detained. However, there is no arrest warrant. A judge has not looked at it. And in some cases, it's only done for persons of interest, which is a made-up term. So you may not even be arrested. You may be detained. It's not clear why the iCard was used in your case, since they know you live in Florida.
But it is clear from those audio, Mike. Don't forget the audios.
Right. And we listened to audios previously where a cop was basically, I think, bluffing your lawyer, saying that because McMahon is the victim, I can do whatever I want. And the latest thing is these fingerprints. And what is the deal with the fingerprints?
So here's the issue. On the 10th of July, Judge Ray Rodriguez, who's running for re-election this year, or election to the Supreme Court bench, he's the administrative judge appointed by the Office of Court Administration, that the McMahons have had their fingers in for the past 2 decades, at least. And Ray Rodriguez called in Eric Nelson, the special prosecutor in my case. Didn't notice me, but they had a hearing on July 10th. And then from what I surmise is that hearing was about closing out my case. My case was a pretty important case on Staten Island because they spent over $1 million to prosecute me for making memes and making up fake Facebook pages and whatnot. So at the end of the day, there was what's called an SCI, a supplemental criminal information, because they knew the First Amendment crap was on shaky grounds because of Facebook. It could probably get thrown out as a felony. So you need to have something hardcore in place. And what they got was a former client of mine who came in and said that I robbed him. And how I robbed him was when the federal government arrested me on December 15th, 2017, there was $50,000 sitting in my attorney escrow account. Because I was in prison and unable to withdraw the money at his command, I had committed grand larceny. And this maniac, Eric Nelson, said that I had committed grand larceny, another felony, because it was $50,000. It was over $3,000 in New York, so I committed this additional felony. The problem they had is that in order for the Supreme Court or the Superior Court information to have jurisdiction, in the courts, it has to be done properly. You have to be arrested, booked, processed, and everything else. And that never happened with me. And it's clear it never happened because I was in the possession of and the custody of the federal prison system in Allenwood, Pennsylvania for the entire year of 2020 when we had COVID. And they could have come and gotten me, and they could have, done everything with me. And there was an argument that, okay, well, there was a video conference. That does not that does not suffice for jurisdiction of the court. This is a subject matter jurisdiction issue. So why are the fingerprint cards important, Michael? The fingerprint cards are important because if they don't have the fingerprint card, they can't prove that I was booked. If the absence of the fingerprint card shows that there's no superior court information, there's no Supreme Court jurisdiction, there's no nothing. And so if that happens, then the plea agreement that I took, which I said is invalid anyway, but the plea agreement I took definitely isn't valid because one of the bases of the plea was to remove my criminal liability for something that I didn't have any criminal liability. Therefore, the entire plea gets unwound and unwrapped. And what happens? This case goes away because it's past the 5-year statute of limitations on the supplemental criminal information for saying that I robbed the client when I didn't rob the client and the money was totally safe. But the second part, the fake Facebook case, goes back to pre-trial, and I say, Judge, speedy trial. I want to go to trial next week, and I want to cross-examine Mike McMahon, the quote-unquote victim. I want to cross-examine Ron Castorina, who testified before the grand jury, and I want to cross-examine everybody else. I want to take this to trial right now, fake Facebook case. Let's go. Giddy up. I'm asking the questions, cross-examination. Let's do it. And that will be the end of their political careers, and it may very well bolster what I've been talking to the feds about, color law and RICO violations and other things, which are probably going to happen after the November election in New York. Tish James is under investigation as well up in the Northern District. This stuff and the indictments and everything else will come down, mark my words, after the November elections. It's common practice in the United States U.S. Attorney's Office for the election season.
Let me interrupt you, because speaking of ending careers, here's a guy who should be really worried about his career, Detective John Wilkinson. There he is. He is the cop that I believe tried to bluff your lawyer. And so let's listen to this for a minute.
Morning, this is Attorney Lawrence Almagno. How are you?
Hey, what's up?
So I found out that there's a warrant for Richard Luthmann, criminal contempt.
Yes. I am actually the case detective. Yes.
Oh, okay. What's your name?
Wilkinson.
Okay. And who is the complaining witness?
I don't have that in front of me. I don't know. Oh, no, it's the Staten Island DA. Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, Staten Island DA.
McMahon?
Yep.
And is there a special prosecutor?
There will be, of course. We know that. And you know that.
No, I just asking my questions. And then
yeah, but you know the answer to that one, big brother. You know that.
What is his surrender and booking options?
So I would like to get him to surrender so I don't have to then get an arrest warrant and use the U.S. Marshals and go to Florida, because you know that's a disaster. So he can surrender. If you're his attorney, you can set it up, and then I let the DA's office know, and then they handle it from there.
All right. Is that something that could be done virtually?
Oh God, no. No. No, you know all these answers too that you're asking me.
I mean, there have been some virtual ones.
No,
even in federal.
You know the answers. You know the answers. So listen, jot down my my cell phone number, my department issued cell phone number, please.
Yeah.
It is 929-334-8102. And then shoot me a text, and then I will write you back with my name, my unit, all that kind of stuff. And then, if possible, we could communicate via text. That's fine, because it's easier. It's easier. Yeah. Are you, what's that? I didn't see the area code. You based in Florida or New York City?
I'm based in Providence. So, I have an office.
He hasn't, there's a few things. He wants you to surrender.
He started. He didn't know. He started. He didn't know anything about the case. Oh, I don't know. I don't know. And then he knew everything about the case.
Right. But also, listen, that communicating by text message is not proper police procedure. I can tell you that. I've talked to cops. That is not something cops are supposed to be doing. You're not supposed to be communicating by text message. That's a lot harder to trace. I don't know why, he's like, shoot me a text and then I'll give you my unit number. What, you can't say that over the phone? What does that mean? The having you surrender, you learn that there's no warrant. There's an I card. What is an I card, and how is that same and different from a warrant?
So here's the deal. An I card, like you said before, is just a bolo. Be on the lookout for this guy, and if you're NYPD, arrest this guy and bring him into the station house. It's not a warrant. A warrant is something that is looked at by a neutral and detached magistrate or judge. It is a probable cause determination. What a I card is some dumbass cop in a precinct making their own probable cause determination. Someone who's never went to law school, someone who's not a lawyer, but they're saying, okay, yeah, we got probable cause. And in this case, they found probable cause because their boss, the chief law enforcement officer of Richmond County, told them there was probable cause. Correct. So there's no neutral and detached magistrate. But they arrest people every day in New York City on these I cards, warrantless I cards, violating the Constitution.
Now,
and Michael, we talked before about federal monitors and Trump coming in. This might be another reason for Trump to come into New York City, that they're arresting people without warrants on a regular basis, without a judicial magistrate review. It says so in the Fourth Amendment. So that's another reason. Maybe after Mandami the commie, if he gets in, maybe continuous practice will get him.
First of all, I watched a YouTube video with 4 lawyers, one or more prosecutors, and then some defense attorneys. And they weren't bothered by the I card because they said it saves time. However, even if that's true, which seems skeptical to me, that why cops should go to a judge to get an arrest warrant every time, that's so time consuming. Well, in this case, it doesn't save time because you don't live in New York, and they know you don't live in New York. So why wouldn't they get an arrest warrant?
The address that they have for me, and that cop knew I lived in Florida, but the address they have for me on the booking sheet is the MDC Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center's address on 29th Street, Brooklyn. That's the address that they're claiming on the paperwork where I live. The jail where
then they could have issued the I card and gone to get you at MDC. That's not hard.
If I was living in MDC, there's no way I could have committed the crime.
Right. Yeah.
It's a legal possibility.
Right. So look, this scandal is big. All right, and I'm going to be interviewing you later with a woman named Marta Bryceland who dealt with the I card, dealt with the Staten Island NYPD, and dealt with the warrant squad. I don't believe it's just the 2 of you. That whole department there in Staten Island may be dirty. And as you know,
I ain't looking at them. The rat squad going in there.
NYPD. There's been many great NYPD cops, but NYPD corruption goes back to the late 1800s when they were a tool of Tammany Hall, and obviously Frank Serpico, the mafia cops, and many others. There's also been many scandals. This looks like more dirty cops. This guy Wilkinson has a lot to answer for. I think he was bluffed. I think he was bluffing your lawyer. I think he wanted to make it seem like we got this in the bag. You bring him in. When in reality they had nothing. They were trying to bluff you into showing up in New York City.
You know why they were doing it, Mike, right? To get the extra fingerprint card. Because what they do is they got to put the file.
Get the extra
Staten Island, I'm going to make a couple of points here. First, Staten Island does not have an e-file system. McMahon's been there since 2015, knows nothing about criminal justice still after a decade doing it. Okay, Brooklyn and Manhattan both have filed e-file type systems you can go in and look at. The public can look at these cases. There's none in Staten Island. It's like 1840s Alabama. Okay, and like Pacer and the Feds, that's not there either. The other point about this is they wanted to get that fingerprint card in there because they could do a paper fingerprint card. So all they got to do is put a paper manila fingerprint card, throw it in Eric Nelson's file, and then they say, oh no, this is a fingerprint card. He was booked. There's evidence he was booked. The third point is it's not just NYPD corruption. It's judicial and political corruption. And the next series of articles that will be coming out on Frank Report by you, by me, and by others will be about the Staten Island machine and how they have, the McMahons have run that machine. And they're a judicial political machine that has their fingers in everything. And the biggest point is that Michael Tannousis, who's the GOP party leader, has been trading judicial nominations, including Mike McMahon's wife, Judy McMahon's 2023 election, right? She ran on every line, cross-endorsed by the Democrats and the Republicans, right? And the Republicans, she got 75% of her votes on the Republican line. Who's Michael Tannousis? He used to be an ADA who worked for Mike McMahon. Mike McMahon
Right.
made him into the GOP leader. It's
And-
like incestuous. It's insanely incestuous. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. Just the tip
Right.
of the iceberg. I have lawyers.
Right.
I have other politicians. I have judges. Dirty stuff that I've been collecting for years. I've been nice. But because of Mike McMahon, it's all going to come out. So if you're on Staten Island and you wonder in the next few weeks and months why your name's in the paper, why is this scandal happening? Why are people talking about me? It is because of Mike and Judy McMahon, because they have to be brought to justice because of Part N, because of their lies, because of what they've been doing over the years to many people, not just myself, and the tentacles of corruption that they have. The swamp of Staten Island will be drained. I will expose, you will expose, Parlato will expose, others will expose, and then, like the November man, the feds will roll in after November. That's it.
All right. Hopefully. Speaking of dirty cops,